Hi, Robert Wallace here with my good friend Ward behind the camera, and we're in the shop, and today we're going to be installing these KoubaLink 2.0 for the BMW S650 Dakar, which belongs to my sister. Now, my sister is 5'7", but this bike is designed easily for someone that is 6 feet tall. It's very difficult to control at slow speed if you're that short. So what this link does is it actually extends a certain part of the rear suspension, which shortens the whole bike because of the suspension is in this weird linkage, which I'm not really going to go into how it works as I can't describe it all that well. But essentially it's replacing this link right here, and that in turn shortens the bike approximately 2 inches, which will give my sister a chance to actually be able to put both feet on the ground. First things first, you want to raise the back end by putting it on a jack or milk crate or something along those lines. Next, you're going to want to undo this bolt from the other side. There's a nut, and it's 18 millimeters, and then you'll probably want to put a crescent wrench or box end wrench on here to stop it from spinning once you get to that side. Next, you're probably going to want to lift this swing arm a little bit just to unload the pressure off this bolt as you work it out. Next up, you're going to want to remove the 14 millimeter headed bolt and the 16 millimeter nut on either side of this link. Now, there's another one on the other side, so you'll have to get that too. We've already pre-loosened the head and nut, so I'm just going to pull this out. You'll probably want to catch that before it drops on the cement. If you don't have a lift, this can be a little tricky. I've misplaced my 16 millimeter box end, so we're using a very large crescent wrench, which is where we get into the realm of being a backyarder, but right now we're just in the back garage. This is where we start to get a little elbow grease and a little bit of forebrow sweat into the equation, but I feel like we're making some progress. Almost got this nut off. Okay, we're finger tight here. Pulling the bolt out. Oh, there goes the nut. There goes the linkage. So as you can see, the KoubaLink is significantly bigger than the original upper link. Now how this works is that it extends the travel of the swing arm, thus compressing the shock a little early. So it works almost as if you're preloading the rear shock. So we have a bearing in here that we're going to push out of the main rocker. I'm going to give it a bit of a clean, and then I'm going to put my grease gun in there and just throw some grease around. It won't really, there's no grease nipple, so there's not a lot we're going to be able to do. But here, I'll show you in 1 second. Let me grab the grease gun. We got ourselves some bearing grease. And we're just going to grease the crap out of it. No such thing as too much grease. And I'll just work it with my pinky finger. Get it nice and good in there, nice and happy. And then we'll throw this bearing back in. There we go. Awesome. And it's feeling happy, I'm feeling happy. Everybody's nice and lived. So we've got our grease gun from Canadian Tire. And then we're going to grease these links here before we install them, as per the instructions. So you simply slide the bearing that you pushed out of the old ones into the new one. Shouldn't require any pressing. Slip it through, make sure that it's not flush here, but that it pokes through a little bit on the other side. That way you know the seals are really holding it in. Just work a little bit back and forth, so we know that the seals are really on there, solid. Perfect. Slap her on the grease gun, and let the magic happen. what we're going to do is we're going to put it back in the reverse order in which they came out, the old stock ones. Make sure the head for the bolt is on the outside, and then don't forget you have a nut and a washer that needs to go on the reverse side of this bolt. So we've had to lift up the back wheel here to give me enough room to throw this bolt back in. Note the excellent use of old stock parts for our mechanical needs. This gives me enough lift that I can do this by hand. Hopefully. Throw the bolt in. And then lift up the rear swing arm a little bit. Give you a bit of work. Here I am, I'm going to torque the 14. You notice that I've got a little stubby 16 on the bolt, or sorry, on the nut. Now I'm going to just make sure that I'm at 20 foot-pounds. There you hear it click. You know that you're
30
set. Foot-pounds, 32. Click. There we go. Now we know we torqued it. And as you can see, KoubaLinks are installed and torqued on either side, greased, and I can't wait to take this thing out and sit on it. So what we're doing right now is we're just loosening these triple clamps, and then we're going to poke the fork tubes up, you know, a couple of inches to compensate for what we've done in the rear, because you want to make sure that the geometry of the bike stays exactly the same. Otherwise your riding performance and even safety could be, you know, severely affected. You don't want to get all of the clamps too on either side. There's 3 aside on a Dakar. What I did is that I raised the jacks so that, and then loosened these off so that they dropped out. And then I lifted it up and lowered the jack so that the fork tubes came through the brackets, the triple clamp, until it reached the handlebars. Then I raised the jack a little bit again with everything being loose and just backed it off a hair, you know, 1/16 of an inch or a couple of millimeters off the handlebars, so that if there is any slippage, you know, it won't be all pressure on the handlebars. Now I'm going to go back and tighten these bolts again, both in the triple clamp and in the bracket down here in the middle, and just make sure everything's tight, and then I'm going to torque it back to factory spec once I'm done. I'm just going to back it out here and show you what a big difference this will make. As you can see, I'm not even wearing riding boots, and I can stand more or less with my feet flat on the ground, whereas before, you know, I was up on my tippy toes like this. On either side, I'm going to start the bike and just take a quick spin around the block. Obviously, I'm not wearing any riding equipment, so I'm not going to be going any farther than the end of my lane and back. Let's see how it feels. Definitely feels a lot lower than it did before, but I'm pretty happy to say that first project in the shop accomplished.